Hi, thank you for joining me today. And today is yet another video centered around James. This time it's documenting a recent makers market that he did in a local town called Congleton, which is South Cheshire. We live in the county of Cheshire up in the north, and this was about an hour away from us. He was scheduled to do a fair in Warrington, and the wind speeds were too high, so they cancelled it on the Saturday, and he'd been so excited about that Christmas fair. So we had a quick look when we heard about the cancellation and saw that Congleton still had spaces, and Ross agreed to take him down to that. So Ross took him down and set up and did the day with him, and I took Mum, Dad and Amelia, and we had a lovely little trip down to Congleton and then a really nice pub lunch on the way home. So I've pulled out my Spectrum Gardenia for this because the two photos, one is one that the Makers Market took of James's stall with all his dragons on, and then one is one that Ross took to show me when they were all set up. Wasn't particularly happy. You can see, well, you'll see when I put the photos back, that you can see all the boxes underneath the tablecloth. So I've told him not to do that again to make sure that everything's covered. Anyway, no matter. I really wanted to create some chevrons going across the centre of the paper. This is, did I mention this is 49er Market Spectrum Gardenia? Sorry if I didn't. So I've cut a piece of just copier paper to 4 inches square, and I'm using the corner of that paper to create the chevrons with my blending the ink over the top. So at the beginning I used my T-square ruler to find the centre of the paper, and then I've just added a few dots across the page at 6 inches up, and I added my first chevron, and then I remembered that 49er Market on their B-sides of their papers, which is what this is, don't show the branding strip. And I've been caught out by this once before, where I ended up doing a layout that was 12.5 or 12.75 by 12 because I hadn't cut the branding strip off and hadn't realised. And yes, the same thing had happened on this one. So because I measured from the bottom up, I had to cut the opposite end off the paper, if that makes sense. So the branding strip, if I were to turn this paper over, you would see is still there, but it doesn't matter. I was really happy with the positioning of everything and the way that this paper looks, so it all worked out just fine. So I was really pleased with how these chevrons worked. I was hoping that this was how it would look, and it does. It's definitely a technique that I'm going to try again in the future, and I do like it over this 49er Market paper because it's a beautiful heavyweight smooth paper, so it made it really easy to create the chevron shapes. So I've just pulled out a scrap of another paper. I think this was a 6x8 paper that I'd cut something off previously, and it just works behind these photos. I have to overlap them slightly, but that's no issue. And then I shall start building up clusters behind that. And I did struggle with this layout a little bit. It started off fine. I knew that I wanted those chevrons. I knew I wanted those two photos in the centre, and I had an inkling of the sort of things that I wanted to put on it, but it just didn't come together easily. Sometimes layouts do, and sometimes they just don't, do they? Anyway, I'm pulling out the film strips, and I found one of the big frames, and I thought, oh yes, perfect, I'll use that as a base for the photo cluster. So I added it to the right-hand side of the photos, which isn't like me. Normally I tend to build on the left-hand side, and I don't know if this is what sort of stopped me in my tracks, really. So you can see I decided that definitely wasn't right, so adding it to the left-hand side, and I'm much happier with that. This little chipboard star piece is one that Jackie gave me. It's gorgeous. I think that's the last piece that I've got left of these now. I may have a tiny bit left, but they're more or less used, and they were really nice to use. The Create is a canvas flare badge from Hey Little Magpie, and what else have I added there? This Viewmaster is a die cut from Hey Little Magpie again. I've just cut it from black card, and I had that for a previous layout which I didn't use it on, so it was just hanging out on my desk, and I was determined to get it on this layout. And then you can see I pulled in another film strip frame as well in black again. So just going through my pot of ephemera now, and I find this half frame that I think would work nicely up here. That red notebook piece is from the laser cut elements that I'd pulled previously, as are those tickets in the bottom left. I think they were both from the laser cut elements. They may have been from the ephemera pack. This is from the ephemera pack, this little tab that I'm going to add at the top to add my date to. And then there's another little label. I was trying to bring the colours in from those dragons, so reds and blues and purples. So I'm just going to commit to adding that tab at the top there. And then I'm going through to see what else I can bring in. And I find these big notebook paper, they're not notebook paper, they're like cards, aren't they? Like reference cards. So I bring in a pink one and a blue one in the end. Just trying and fiddling around to see if that's going to work. I did think about using the purple, but I already had the purple of that tab, and I wanted to bring in this purple film strip that you just saw me playing with there. So I decided to leave the purple piece of paper. So here I am coming in with one of the 6x8 papers now, just to add another layer. I wanted to create a nice differential in the colours that I've got going on, and I felt it was very purple and green at the beginning, so I'm just trying to bring in some other bits and pieces here. So I'm happy with that layer. I'm just going to use my scissors to rough up the edges. I really didn't mind if I cut into the paper a bit today. I was going for a grungy look, and these papers are so thick and heavy, it's quite labour intensive to use the edge distresser from Tim Holtz, so using my little cutter bee scissors was the way to go. And you'll see in a minute, I start gluing, but then decide that I want to stretch these pieces of paper a little bit further. So I stick the blue down, I stick the paper down first from the 6x8 paper pad, then I tried to stick this blue one down. I think that's what had gone wrong. I was going to put these index cards behind, in front of that 6x8 paper, but I stuck the 6x8 paper down first for some reason. It's only watching the video that I've realised that's what's happened. So anyway, I cut the index cards in half and stretched them. So I'm putting the pink at the top and bottom and that blue on the left and right. And that works really well. If you ever find that your pieces aren't big enough, try cutting them in half. It just stretches them out a little bit. I didn't make sure that they were matching. Like this pink piece, you'll see I've got the bottom one justified to the left and the top one justified to the right. But it just brings that colour in around the photos and just draws your attention to those photos in the middle of the page. So just clearing the decks now, and I'm going to start again building up and layering, seeing if I can get there. Still want to use that red note paper up there, and then I find this tab that says Chase Your Dreams, and I think that works really nicely layered up there, so I'm going to add that in as well. And I'm trying to glue as I go onto this cluster, just so that everything stays in place. So there are those two bits in, and then the film strips. And I'm going to have a little bit of a fiddle now, I think, trying to work out where to put everything. I definitely want to use this big one as a frame, offset frame if you like. And then I really wanted to use that die cut piece as well, because it's just a half piece, and I was determined to get that used up on this layout. And of course that Viewmaster die cut. So bringing the flare back in, and I know that I've got to build some more up around that flare. Still trying to decide where to put that rub on that I cut out. That says awesome, and I just thought it was a really good definition for that day. It was the perfect day. It wasn't too windy, it wasn't too cold, the sun was out. It was just a really nice day to get out. We were a bit worried because it was so close to Christmas, because it was the 16th of December, whether people were going to come out and still want to buy, but they did. So that was a relief. So just taking this was the piece that I cut off the background paper that isn't the branding strip, but it still works really nicely layered under the bottom of that photo. So creating almost like an L shape now. So just tucking in some other little bits and pieces, that label, the 2 tickets that I'd found previously. And then I realised I need to get things glued down. And it's still not stuck to the background yet. So just manoeuvring pieces and then adding glue. You can see every time I move something, something else moves. So when I moved that film strip at the top moved. It's just frustration at this point. I think because I've been fiddling for so long, when you find how you want things to go and you touch one piece and another piece moves, it just frustrates me a little bit. But anyway, I get there. It's supposed to be relaxing, isn't it, scrapbooking? And generally it is, but this layout really did cause me some issues. So bringing in some black thread to add behind that fabric flare. I really like doing this, and it just brings that black into that bottom corner nicely. So just adding some glue under the thread and then again on top of the thread or on the flare badge to get that stuck down. And then I need to stick this view master piece down and that frame. So yeah, it's still all moving around. And I was just having a little bit of a think whether I wanted the Viewmaster to be a little bit higher up. So just having a fiddle there. But I am really pleased with the positioning of everything at the end. So I've just been through and added a bit of glue there to everything. It's still not glued down to the main page, so I'm going to do that now using my Nuvo. I was having issues with my little glue bottle again today. It just keeps seizing up, and I think it's because I leave it with the pin out for too long, so it gets little clogs and I struggle to use it. So there's that gorgeous chipboard star cluster that's gone down, and here's the rub-on, and it's going to nestle into the left hand side of the page here. Couldn't find the rub-on tool again. This is pretty standard for me. So I'm just using the reverse end of my cutting knife and just rubbing that onto the page. And then again, this was just hanging out on my desk. It was a piece I cut out previously from one of the All and Create dies. This is one of their new dies, and I love these border strips that you can create. And I do tend to cut with black cardstock because I just think it adds so much impact to a page. This is one of the laser cut pieces from Spectrum Gardenia again. And it was just bringing that orangey yellow in. I thought it needed something to lighten it up a little bit on this side. So I'm just adding that as another vertical piece, and then I add the other half to the horizontal at the bottom, mirroring what I'm doing each time. So there we go, just tucking it under that pink piece, and then coming in with my date stamp to add the date to that little tab before I forget. And then I'm going to add the journaling. Now there wasn't much space left really to add journaling, so I've taken it around the page and I've just added what had happened about Warrington Market, and I had managed to get a place at Congleton, which was nice. So you can see here I'm just bringing in some little wood pieces. These are wood chevrons from JG 3D Print. I just felt that gap to the right of that definition needed filling in a little bit. So I've added a couple of wood chevrons, but I don't like adding just two. I'm a bit funny about things like that, so I am going to come in and resolve that shortly. I'm just adding some seam binding to the top of this frame. It just brings in a nice different texture. I really like the look of it, so I just thought it would be nice tied to the top of that frame there, and then I just glue down the ends in the positions that I want them to be. So that's that ribbon sorted, and now I'm going to come in and sort out the bottom cluster. I just find a purple heart that's left on my desk, so I think that would work really nicely at the bottom there, and then also a tab of ribbon above that paper frame there. Oh, I've not added the purple heart yet, sorry, I must do that afterwards. So here I'm resolving that issue with the chevron, and I'm just taking my black pen and drawing a small chevron at the back with just sketchy lines around it. And I really like the look of that. It sort of ties in nicely with the blacks on the page with that definition piece. Here's that heart that I was talking about. Sorry, you can't always see the bottom of the screen very clearly when you're voicing over. I have got the layout in front of me, and I thought that's what I was messing about with down there. So the final addition is some splatters of gold watercolour, and that's the layout finished. I really hope you've enjoyed this process video. Thank you so much for joining me and bearing with me while I fiddle and faff the whole time. I shall see you again very soon. Thanks again. Bye.